Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to ace a test. Now, before I give you some strategies on acing a test, I want to give you some very interesting statistics that come from William Poundstone's book, Rock, Breaks, Scissors, a practical guide to outguessing and outwitting almost everybody. It's a very interesting book, and he focused part of this book on test taking. He took 100 tests from 34 schools and colleges and 66 other sources, and this gave him a total of 2,456 questions. Now, these were all multiple choice tests. And he came up with some interesting statistics that you should keep in mind when taking a multiple choice test. The first thing that he noticed is that 56% of the time when taking a true-false test, the answer was true. So 44% was false. If you're taking a true or false test and you can't figure out the answer, the odds are in your favor if you guess true. Now, why is this? Well, it might be because it's harder to invent something that is false rather than think of something that is true. And this goes for the people who are preparing tests as well. Now here, I want to be really clear on something. I am not advising guessing as a test-taking strategy. The best strategy is to know the answers and be well prepared, but I am giving you some statistics for when you get stuck. With those same statistics in mind, here are some other stats. The next thing he discovered is that 63% of the time, the next answer will be different than the previous one. This means if you answered true on one question, the question before, and it was an easy answer, and you know it was right, well, guess what? There's a 63% chance the next answer will be false. It's not 100%, but it does tilt the odds in your favor a bit. Next, he discovered a multiple choice test where you have three choices, A, B, or C. He found that there was really no answer that was more common. You have an equally chance at guessing an A, B, or C. No advantage. However, if there were four choices, A, B, C, or D, the second answer, or B, in this scenario was correct 28% of the time. This gives you a little bit of an advantage. Now, when there was five options, A, B, C, D, or E, the last option, or E, was the most commonly correct at 23% of the time. C was the least common at 17%. So basically, if you have four choices, guess the second one. If you have five choices, guess the last one. Now, here is something big, and I mean this is big. When Mr. Poundstone was doing research, he discovered that if there was an option that said none of the above or all of the above, it was correct 52% of the time. That's astonishing, actually. If you were just randomly guessing none of the above or all of the above gives you a 90% advantage over random guessing. Now, these are good stats to know. But is this really the way to ace the test, by guessing A, B, C based on percentages? No, it's not at all. To ace a test, you're going to need to be well prepared. These are just stats to keep in mind when you get stuck on a question. In other words, something to think about for a handful of questions you don't know. But what are some strategies to really ace a test without guessing? Number one, my first advice is to get pumped up for the test. Believe that you're going to do well. Have a positive attitude. Even if you think you won't do well on the test, don't let yourself hear it. Instead, say, I got this. I'm going to do great. Remind yourself of your past successes on tests. And here's why. Stress is the worst enemy to your brain when you're taking a test. When you are stressed, your brain produces something called cortisol, and this cortisol is a stress hormone, and it'll inhibit your ability to think properly. The best thing that you can do is stay relaxed but positive. Remind yourself, oh, I remember that time I took that test in Spanish class and I did well. I know I do well on tests. Tell yourself you do well on tests. Write that out. I do well on tests. I will ace my test. Get that positive self-talk going. Smile before you take the test. Walk around and smile even if you don't feel like it. It'll raise your mood and it will relax you. But remember, the best way to stay positive and relaxed isn't silly tricks. If you're relaxed, it's because you're going to be prepared. This is by far the best way to ace a test, to prepare. Now, when you're trying to stay relaxed, one thing that's important is to deep breathe. This increases your oxygen levels. You're getting more oxygen in, you're getting more oxygen to your brain, and you're going to be able to think more clearly. You're going to be primed to do your best on the test. Take deep breaths. Hold it for 10 seconds. Exhale. This will calm you down, but it'll also increase your oxygen levels, more oxygen to your brain. Now, when you get that test, open it up and glance through it real quick. See how many questions are on the test. See what's in store for you. This is going to help you manage your time better. It also prevents any surprises and reduces anxiety a little bit because you know what's coming. Some people recommend going through the test and searching for the easy answers first. I don't recommend this. It can actually be more time-consuming searching for the easy answers unless something just jumps out at you. Instead, glance at the entire test, and this is going to reduce your anxiety a bit because you're going to know in the back of your mind what's coming. You're going to not be wondering what's next. You're going to know. And although I don't skip around, if I get to a question that is tough or I don't know the answer to, I will skip it. Continue answering the questions in order, but skip and come back to the tougher questions. Now, I do this for a couple reasons. Number one, it's easy to spend too much time on a hard question and then run out of time and you don't get a chance to answer the questions that you knew the answers to and they were worth as much points as that hard question. Number two, when you focus on something you don't know, it's going to rise your stress levels. So it's better to keep your stress levels low and answer the questions you know. Now, if you do skip any questions, make a mark in the side or a star so you know which ones to come back to if you have time at the end. If you don't mark them, you might miss them when you go back. Now, read each question carefully when taking a test. Take a close look at every question before you attempt to answer it. Read each question twice if you have the time. If you have a multiple choice test, read the entire question before looking at any of the answers and see if an answer pops into your head and then see if it's in the answers. If it does, you'll have a much higher confidence of guessing that answer. Now, here is a reason why you want to read all the questions correctly. The question might say, which one of these was not a U.S. president? And you read it so fast you don't see the word not, so you answer incorrectly. When you're taking a test like this, especially a multiple choice test, try to use the process of elimination. For example, if you know one or two of the answers are absolutely false, draw a line through them and eliminate them. Now you're just choosing between two answers and find the best answer of the two. The key to a multiplication test isn't thinking which one is right, but sometimes it's thinking which one of these is not right and eliminating the answers until you have only one left. Now, my next tip is to review your answers thoroughly when you're done, or maybe at the end of each page. Try to save time at the end of a test so you can go back and check your answers. There's no glory in being the first person to hand in your test. Don't rush to finish the test. Go back and review and check your answers. It pays off. And what going back does is sometimes tests will give you hints. And what I mean is this. If you have a test that has 50 questions on it, there might be a question early on in the test, who was the third president of the United States? And it has all these choices, and it's Thomas Jefferson, but you don't know that. Then later on in the test, a question says, Thomas Jefferson was the president after John Adams. Tell us about that election. Well, guess what? That question later in the test gave you the answer to that question if you knew that John Adams was the second president. Sometimes there will be hints that will help you answer other questions in questions later in the test. This is why you want to go back. Take the entire test and then go back and check your answers. But as you do, you may remember something that you saw in the test that triggers you for an answer previously. Now next, if you can't remember the answer, think of the room that you were in when you were studying this material. Here's an example. When I was in 6th grade, I had a science teacher named Mr. Tedley, and I remembered when I was studying for his test, I remembered this specific question. And as I studied that question, I ate a cinnamon roll. And then 2 days later, I was in that 6th grade science test. And I was taking that test, and that question came up, and I couldn't think of the answer. Then I thought back to how that cinnamon roll smelled and how that cinnamon roll tasted. And as crazy as it sounded, it took me back to that room and I remembered the answer. Now, this doesn't always work, but it works sometimes. If you can anchor answers to a question, to things like smells or taste or the room that you're in, believe it or not, sometimes it's a trigger. It's not always the best option, but it's an option to keep in mind. Next, get some sleep the night before you take a test. Seriously, if you thought cramming was a good idea, you're in for a surprise. Depriving your brain of sleep keeps it from firing on all cylinders. You'd be much better off closing the book, studying less, and getting some sleep. Try to get at least 8 full hours of sleep on the night before a test. If you feel nervous, just try to get some sleep. Try to do anything to relax before bed, like taking a bath or listening to music, or close your eyes and I imagine myself floating through space. That's how I relax sometimes. But just do something to get your mind off the test. Finally, my last tip on taking a test is this. You know, maybe, that I'm a 2-time USA memory champion. I used to hold the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards, and I use a technique known as the Mind Palace to memorize whatever I want to recall. Here's a Cliff Notes version of the Mind Palace. You memorize a map of your house, and then whatever you want to remember, you see on pieces of furniture in your house. Imagine this, you're taking a chemistry test. So in your chemistry room, you have 10 spots around the room selected. The teacher's desk, the whiteboard, the window, the door. And then you have things that you want to remember for the chemistry test. You want to remember the element helium. So you imagine helium balloons on the whiteboard. You want to imagine the element nitrogen. So you imagine a knight, like a knight in shining armor, on the computer, your teacher's computer. This is a technique known as the Mind Palace, and it's really, really good. I have a full video below on the Mind Palace, and if you want to go to the next step and really learn some great memory techniques, I have a free PDF, and it's in the link down below. So click the link down below. I have a free gift for you. It's a free PDF that gives you some really great memory tips to take your memory to the next level. It's excerpts from my course, Black Belt Memory. So click that link below, look at the description. If you like this video and you got some interesting ideas from it, I do appreciate all the thumbs up and I appreciate all comments. Comment below and tell me what you learned from this video. Comment below and tell me what your strategies for test taking are. I'd love to hear some of your ideas on how to ace a test. I'll see you on the next video.